Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode, 1973 to 1974 contactee, Sixto Paz Wells. Peru, the architect of Latin American contactee culture. To understand how Latin America approaches the phenomenon of extraterrestrial contact, one must look closely at Sixto Paz Wells. As the founder of Mission Rahma and one of the most prolific authors and lecturers on contactee history in the Spanish-speaking world, Paz Wells bridged the gap between 1970s esoteric mysticism and empirical, open-air field investigation. His life's work transformed individual mystical experiences into an organized international movement that treated human ET communication not as a rare anomaly, but as a systematic protocol available to anyone willing to expand their consciousness. Born in Lima, Peru, into a politically and intellectually prominent family, his father, Carlos Paz Garcia, was a naval officer and a pioneering researcher of anomalous phenomena. Sixto Paz Wells was initially a pragmatic young architecture student, equipped with a deeply analytical and skeptical mind. He was far from a credulous mystic. Rather, his entry into the world of high strangeness began through controlled experimental curiosity. In 1974, at just 19 years old, Paz Wells became involved with a small, serious circle of researchers, family members, and friends in Lima who were exploring parapsychology, altered states, and psychical research. During experimental sessions, utilizing automatic writing and focused mental concentration, the group reported something entirely unexpected. The flow of writing shifted from disjointed scribbles to highly coherent, structured, and rapid telepathic transmissions containing complex philosophical and scientific concepts. According to Paz Wells' foundational accounts and early group logs, the primary intelligence communicating through the transmissions identified itself as Antarel. Antarel claimed to be an emissary and representative of an advanced extraterrestrial civilization, residing on Ganymede, the largest moon of Jupiter. The choice of Ganymede as a base was described not as a physical colony in the traditional sci-fi sense, but as an energetic and observatory outpost monitoring Earth's evolutionary trajectory. Rather than focusing on technical schematics of starships or weapon systems, the early communications delivered an urgent philosophical imperative. The entities warned that humanity was rapidly approaching a dangerous self-inflicted bottleneck, imperiled by nuclear proliferation, severe ecological collapse, spiritual stagnation, and aggressive materialism. The group was informed that they had been selected not as elite masters, but as ordinary conduits to spread a universal message of spiritual awakening, ecological stewardship, individual inner transformation, and the peaceful unity of humankind across the cosmos. What set Mission Rahma apart from abstract philosophical groups or isolated mysticism was its insistence on a rigorous, reproducible group methodology and verifiable public demonstration. Sixto Paz Wells rejected the idea that human beings were merely passive spectators of an accidental phenomenon. Instead, he treated contact as a bidirectional, interactive science rooted in consciousness, discipline, and shared intention. Paz Wells formalized a precise system of group meditation, deep mental concentration, and telepathic projection. Participants were trained in relaxation techniques, emotional balancing, and mental synchronization before attempting any outreach. A foundational tenet of the Yamada was that human consciousness acts as a transmitter. Paz Wells taught that passive skywatching was insufficient. True contact required high moral coherence, inner peace, and a collective desire for universal service and ecological healing. Without internal alignment, the group believed human consciousness could not interface cleanly with higher dimensional frequencies. To counter inevitable accusations of mass hallucination, self-delusion, or elaborate fraud, Paz Wells instituted a policy of radical transparency. Rather than operating in closed, secretive compounds, the group actively sought out professional scrutiny. Mission Rahma routinely invited mainstream journalists, major television documentary crews, independent photographers, and skeptical scientists to pack their gear and accompany expedition teams directly into the most desolate sectors of the desert. The operational hallmark of Mission Rahma was its reliance on pre-announced scheduling. Before stepping foot into the dunes, the group would document and formally declare the exact time, duration, compass bearing, and behavioral characteristics of an impending aerial manifestation. On numerous documented expeditions, foreign television crews, military observers, and hardened skeptics watched in astonishment as luminous orbs, geometric formations of light, and structured, silent disc-shaped craft materialized in the night sky, precisely as foretold, transforming subjective mystical claims into an empirical, field-tested phenomenon. The arid, desolate coastline of the Chilca Desert, situated just south of Lima, Peru, quickly transformed from a barren strip of sand into the physical and spiritual epicenter for Mission Rahma's high-stakes field experiments. It became a living laboratory where subjective telepathic claims collided directly with empirical observation. According to the foundational accounts of Mission Rahma in 1974, when Sixto's group asked the alleged entities from Ganymede for proof, the instruction was explicitly given to look locally, to go to the desert coastal strip just south of Lima. Chilca was chosen because it was designated in those early telepathic communications as the immediate accessible testing ground. The Chilca Desert is located just a short drive south of Peru's capital, Lima, where Sixto Paz Wells and his study group lived. This made it logistically feasible for students, local researchers, and, crucially, invited journalists and foreign television crews to travel there on short notice without mounting a massive, expensive expedition. While locations like the Nazca Desert or the high-altitude Sacred Valley are deeply mystical, they present heavy logistical hurdles. Organizing public, pre-announced, repeatable group vigils with international press corps requires a site that is safe, open, and easy to monitor collectively over a weekend night. Whereas deep Andean peaks or remote southern deserts, like Nazca, posed greater isolation risks. The entire Peruvian coastal strip is hyper-arid, flat, and virtually devoid of cloud cover for much of the year, flanked by the Pacific Ocean on one side and coastal hills on the other. This geography creates pitch-black night skies with zero urban light pollution, offering an unobstructed 360-degree horizon that is ideal for tracking anomalous lights and staging open-air experiments. While Peru remained his home base and the cradle of Mission Rahma, Sixto Paz Wells did not restrict himself to Peru. As the movement expanded internationally into a massive global network spanning Latin America, Spain, and North America, Paz Wells traveled extensively, including to Chile, Mexico, and Argentina, holding lectures and conducting field workshops in various international anomaly zones. However, the foundational groundwork of his methodology will forever remain anchored in the sands of the Chilca Desert, Peru. Stretching between the Pan-American Highway and the Pacific Ocean, the Chilca Desert offers pitch-black night skies, complete isolation from urban light pollution, and a stark, silent landscape that creates an ideal theater for aerial observation. During organized group night vigils, participants engaged in systematic protocols. Hours of deep meditation, synchronized breathing, vocal calling sessions, la llamada, and unified mental concentration aimed at specific azimuth coordinates over the ocean horizon. Throughout the late 20th century and continuing into the modern era, witnesses reported that the desert lived up to its reputation. Brilliant luminous orbs, hypervelocity shooting stars that abruptly reverse trajectory, morphing geometric sheets of light, and solid, structured disc-shaped craft would routinely materialize precisely according to the pre-announced schedule. What elevated Chilca from a local folklore site to an international legend was its hostile reception of outside scrutiny, and how that scrutiny repeatedly validated the claims. Major international television networks, investigative journalists, documentary crews, and professional magicians or skeptics frequently travel to the sands of Chilca, carrying heavy professional recording equipment. Their explicit goal was to catch Sixto Paz Wells and his followers staging flares, projecting lights, or orchestrating an elaborate hoax. Instead of exposing a fraud, many of these professional skeptics left profoundly shaken. Rolling camera crews captured unedited footage of silent, luminous objects executing instantaneous 90-degree turns, hovering motionless over the Pacific waves, or splitting into multiple independent lights before vanishing. Performances completely outside the capabilities of 20th and 21st century aerospace technology. By repeatedly forcing the unknown into the crosshairs of camera lenses and open-air testing, The Chilca Desert cemented its legacy as one of the most rigorously tested contact zones on the planet. As decades progressed, what began as an intimate study circle in Lima evolved into a massive multinational network. Mission Rahma transcended its Peruvian roots, establishing active chapters, study groups, and field expeditions across South America, Mexico, Spain, and North America. Along with this geographic explosion came a profound deepening of the movement's esoteric and philosophical framework. As Sixto Paz Wells continued his contact work, the scope of his reported experiences expanded far beyond atmospheric UFO sightings into complex, multi-dimensional realms. In Rahma lore, advanced consciousness states and interdimensional travel are frequently categorized under concepts like Zula, referring to subtle, etheric planes of existence where physical matter and spiritual frequency merge, allowing beings to traverse space and time without relying on conventional propulsion. Paz Wells authored over 20 books, claiming not only physical craft encounters, but also alleged physical and non-physical teleportation to interterrestrial retreats. These included secret ancient underground libraries and spiritual monasteries, allegedly hidden deep beneath the bedrock of the Andes Mountains and the Amazon rainforest, safeguarded by ancient guardians to preserve humanity's true history and spiritual archives. While Cold War-era Western pop culture was saturated with dystopian narratives of flying saucers, malevolent alien abductions, and secret government cover-ups, Mission Rahma championed a radically optimistic, spiritually grounded counter-narrative. The core philosophy taught that higher extraterrestrial civilizations are strictly bound by cosmic laws of non-interference. They cannot and will not step in to forcefully save humanity from nuclear annihilation or ecological collapse, as doing so would violate human free will and stunt our spiritual maturation. According to Paz Wells, cosmic assistance is entirely contingent upon humanity's own actions. Extraterrestrials can only intervene, guide, or manifest publicly when humans collectively organize, take full responsibility for healing their own planet, elevate their moral consciousness, and issue a conscious, unified invitation for contact. Sixto Paz Wells remains a towering singular figure in global ufology. While American and European contactee movements of the 1950s and 1960s, marked by solitary figures, making unverifiable claims in living rooms, frequently faded into obscurity, internal schisms, or insular cults, Paz Wells achieved something entirely different. He successfully institutionalized a pragmatic, internationally respected, and systematically organized approach to human extraterrestrial contact. Traditional mid-century contactees were often marginalized by mainstream society, viewed either as psychologically unstable or as dogmatic prophets leading closed-door, ideological movements. Paz Wells shattered this mold by stripping away secretive dogma and replacing it with transparent, open-air scientific methodology. By insisting that contact was not an elite privilege reserved for a single chosen prophet, but a universal human capability accessible through collective discipline, meditation, and moral coherence, he democratized the contact experience. The true legacy of Mission Rahma lies in its willingness to subject deeply esoteric experiences to the harsh, unforgiving light of public scrutiny, journalistic investigation, and camera lenses. By demanding that the unknown step out of the imagination and submit to group observation in the harsh, windswept dunes of the Chilca Desert, Paz Wells transformed what was once a ridiculed fringe subculture into a global, structured quest for human spiritual evolution and ecological awakening. Sixto Paz Wells did not just build a regional movement in South America semicolon. He fundamentally rewrote the blueprint for how modern contactee groups operate globally. By shifting the paradigm away from 1950s-era solitary prophets toward structured, empirical, and open-air field investigations, his work created a lasting ripple effect across international ufology. Modern CE 5 inches, close encounters of the fifth kind, protocols, and global astro-tourism. Before Mission Rahma, traditional contactees claimed encounters happened to them passively, often while driving alone on a dark road or meditating in a private room. Paz Wells inverted this dynamic. He popularized the concept that humans do not have to wait for random chance. They can actively initiate, schedule, and coordinate contact through human consciousness and group discipline. This methodology directly influenced later international contact networks. Modern groups that organize desert vigils, coordinate sky watches, and use unified meditation to call in anomalous lights are utilizing a playbook that Paz Wells pioneered and tested with international media in the Chilca Desert. Historically, mainstream global ufology was heavily Anglocentric, dominated by American and European researchers, focusing on government cover-ups, crash retrievals, or abductions. Through his extensive international travel, dozens of books, and multi-language lectures, Paz Wells forced the global community to recognize Latin America, particularly Peru, Chile, and Mexico, as a primary epicenter for advanced contactee phenomena. By anchoring contact in ecological awareness, universal spirituality, and non-violence rather than fear, he influenced a whole generation of seekers who rejected dystopian, invasion-focused science fiction in favor of a hopeful, cooperative cosmic partnership. The core philosophy of Mission Rahma, that human consciousness can interface directly with non-human intelligence, paved the way for subsequent contact movements. When figures like Dr. Stephen Greer and various international CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, initiatives later popularized protocols involving group meditation, mental projection, and skywatching to trigger UAP manifestations, they were operating within a framework that Paz Wells had already spent decades validating, filming, and refining in the public eye. Sixto Paz Wells modernized the contactee experience. By demanding that subjective spiritual encounters submit to open-air testing, group observation, and media scrutiny, he transformed contact work into an organized global movement. He proved that contact could be approached not as a fringe delusion, but as a disciplined, repeatable human experiment, leaving a legacy that continues to echo through every desert sky watch and consciousness-based research group operating today. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archived Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact and the Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute exploration into the evolution of ufology, perfect for your daily plunge into decoding hidden messages from outer space, designed to raise awareness and foster human evolution. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.